On my 35th birthday, my family threw me a party. The gift they gave me? An eviction notice for my own house. I'm Rebecca Martinez, and for years I played the role of the family ATM, paying mortgages, funding weddings, covering emergencies. I thought love meant sacrifice. I was wrong. What they didn't know was that every bill they asked me to pay, every favor they demanded, I documented everything. Every single one. By the time I finished, my family lost more than just money. They lost their perfect reputation. This is the story of how I went from doormat to the architect of my family's downfall. Stick around. Justice tastes sweet. If you've ever been the family scapegoat, hit subscribe. You'll want to see how this ends. I promise, by the final chapter, you'll understand why walking away isn't cruelty. It's survival. The dining room smelled like vanilla cake and betrayal, though I didn't know about the second part yet. My mother, Linda Martinez, had outdone herself with the decorations. Pastel balloons clustered in every corner, a banner reading, "Happy 35th Birthday, Rebecca," stretched across the archway, and that 3-layer cake she only made for special occasions sitting proudly on the mahogany table I'd bought her 3 Christmases ago. My father, Robert Martinez, stood by the window with his signature tumbler of whiskey, laughing at something my younger sister Jennifer had said. She was 28, pregnant, or so she claimed, and absolutely glowing in a way that made everyone in the room gravitate toward her like she was the sun and we were all just cold planets desperate for warmth. I should have known something was off when Jennifer kept taking pictures of my living room. Not of me, not of the family gathered together, just the house. The crown molding I'd agonized over choosing. The hardwood floors I'd refinanced to afford. The bay windows overlooking the neighborhood I'd fallen in love with the moment I'd toured this place. "Rebecca, honey, come sit down," my mother called, patting the chair beside her. Her smile was the kind that didn't quite reach her eyes, the kind I'd learned to recognize but never questioned because questioning Mom meant you were ungrateful, and ungrateful daughters didn't deserve the love they'd been given. I sat. Jennifer immediately started filming on her phone. "We got you something really special this year," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Something that shows how much we appreciate everything you do for this family." My father handed me a small envelope. Not wrapped, not decorated, just a plain white envelope that felt too light to contain anything valuable. "Open it," Mom urged, squeezing my hand so tight my fingers went numb. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper with official letterhead. My eyes scanned the words, but my brain couldn't process them at first. It was like trying to read underwater. 30-day eviction notice. Tenant, Rebecca Martinez. Property address, 47082 Maple Street, my address. Issued by Robert Martinez and Linda Martinez. I read it 3 times. Then I looked up at my family, waiting for someone to laugh, to tell me this was some sick joke, to explain that this was actually a prank and the real gift was coming. No one laughed. "Jennifer's pregnant," my mother said matter-of-factly, as if that explained everything. "She needs a bigger place. You know how small her apartment is? This house is perfect for a family," my father added, swirling his whiskey. "You don't have kids, Rebecca. You don't even have a boyfriend. What do you need all this space for?" I stared at them. "This is my house. I bought it. With my money." Jennifer's lower lip trembled. "I thought you loved me. I thought family came first." "Family does come first," my mother snapped. "That's why you're going to do this. Jennifer's carrying your niece or nephew. That baby is blood. You're just—" She stopped herself, but I heard what she didn't say. "You're just you. Replaceable, expendable, useful." "We raised you," my father said, his voice taking on that disappointed edge that used to make me apologize for things I didn't do. "We clothed you, fed you, put a roof over your head for 18 years. This is the least you can do." I thought about those 18 years. I thought about paying for Jennifer's college tuition when Dad's business went under, $80,000 I'd taken out in loans I was still paying off. I thought about the $150,000 I'd wired to Dad when he was on the verge of bankruptcy, money he'd promised to pay back but never did. I thought about Mom's house, the one she'd nearly lost to foreclosure, The $200,000 mortgage I'd quietly taken over when she couldn't make payments. $430,000 over 10 years, give or take. And now they wanted the house I'd saved for, the house I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford, the house that was the only thing in my life that was completely, undeniably mine. Jennifer was still filming. I realized she'd been recording this whole thing, probably planning to post it on Instagram with some caption about family sacrifice and sisterly love. I looked at that eviction notice again. Then I smiled. "Okay," I said. My mother blinked. "Okay?" "Okay," I repeated. "I'll think about it." The relief on their faces was instantaneous. Jennifer squealed and threw her arms around me. Dad clapped me on the shoulder like I'd just agreed to help him move furniture. Mom started cutting the cake. But they forgot one crucial detail. The house was in my name. Only my name. And I had receipts for every dollar they owed me. The party continued around me like nothing had happened. Mom served cake on the china I'd bought her for Mother's Day. Dad poured champagne into crystal glasses I'd given them for their anniversary. Jennifer showed everyone her phone, scrolling through Pinterest boards of nursery designs she wanted to create in my master bedroom. My master bedroom. I excused myself and locked the bathroom door. My hands were shaking so hard I had to sit on the edge of the tub and breathe through my mouth to keep from throwing up. 10 years. 10 years I'd given them everything they asked for. I'd worked overtime, skipped vacations, eaten ramen for dinner so I could wire money whenever they called. And I'd done it because I thought that's what love looked like. I thought that's what family meant. But standing in that bathroom, gripping that eviction notice, I finally understood. They didn't love me. They loved what I could give them. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app, scrolled through years of transactions. $80,000 to Westwood University for Jennifer's tuition, $150,000 to Martinez Construction LLC when Dad's company collapsed, $200,000 in mortgage payments to 392 Oakwood Drive, the house where Mom still lived rent-free. I screenshot every transaction, every wire transfer, every payment confirmation. Then I opened my email and searched for every conversation where they'd asked for money, every text message where Dad had promised, "This is the last time, I swear." Every voicemail where Mom had cried about not being able to afford groceries. I saved them all to a folder titled Family. Someone knocked on the door. "Rebecca, you okay in there?" It was Jennifer. "Fine," I called back. "Just need a minute." "Hurry up, we want to take pictures with you and the birthday girl." The birthday girl. I almost laughed. I'd turned 35 today, and my present was a demand to give up the only stability I'd ever had. When I came out, Jennifer was waiting in the hallway with her phone aimed at me. "Say something for the camera," she chirped. "Tell everyone how you feel about becoming an aunt." I looked directly into the lens. "I feel grateful," I said slowly, "to finally see things clearly." Jennifer frowned. "That's kind of weird, but okay." She skipped back to the living room, already editing the clip. That night, after they'd finally left, after Jennifer had taken measurements of my kitchen, after Dad had commented on how much the house must be worth now, after Mom had reminded me that family sacrifices were what made people good, I sat on my couch and opened my laptop. I Googled family financial exploitation. The results made my blood run cold. Every article described my life with eerie accuracy. The golden child versus the scapegoat, the pattern of demands disguised as requests, the guilt weaponized into compliance. The way they'd isolated me from friends, made me believe I was responsible for their happiness, convinced me that saying no meant I was selfish. I'd been their ATM for a decade, and the worst part was, I'd volunteered for the job. I spent the next week in a fog. They called constantly. Mom left voicemails about how proud she was that I was doing the right thing. Dad texted about movers he'd already hired for the transition. Jennifer sent me links to furniture stores asking which couch I thought would look best in her new living room. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I compiled documents, bank statements, loan agreements, emails where they'd explicitly promised to pay me back, text messages where they'd called me selfish when I'd hesitated to send money, On day 7, I called a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she specialized in family law. I'd found her through a support group forum for adult children of narcissists, and her reviews were full of phrases like, "saved my life," and "wish I'd called her sooner." "Tell me everything," she said when I sat down in her office. So I did. I told her about the eviction notice on my birthday, about the $430,000, about the house in my name that they were planning to take, about Jennifer's fake pregnancy sympathy ploy and Mom's guilt trips and Dad's disappointed sighs. Patricia didn't interrupt once. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and smiled. "Rebecca," she said, "you have the most beautiful case I've seen in 5 years." Beautiful? You documented everything. Most people don't. They give, and when they finally wake up, there's no proof. But you? She gestured to the folder I'd brought. You kept every receipt, every email, every text. That's evidence. That's ironclad. Something loosened in my chest. So what do? We send them a demand letter. Formal notice that they owe you $430,000 plus interest. We give them 30 days to respond. And if they don't pay, which they won't, we file a civil suit for financial exploitation and defamation. Defamation? Jennifer's social media posts calling you selfish and cruel while you're actually the victim? That's textbook defamation. Patricia pulled out a legal pad. "I'm going to be honest with you. This will get ugly. They'll fight back. They'll try to gaslight you, make you doubt yourself, turn other family members against you. Can you handle that?" I thought about the eviction notice. I thought about 10 years of sacrifice. I thought about sitting in my own bathroom on my birthday, having a panic attack because my family wanted to steal my home. "Yes," I said. "I can handle it." "Good." Patricia extended her hand. "Then let's burn down the house they built on your back." The demand letter went out on day 14. Patricia had warned me not to contact them, not to answer their calls, to let the legal system do its work. I lasted 6 hours before Dad called. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened to the message. "Rebecca, what the hell is this? You're suing us? Your own family? Are you insane? Call me back right now. We need to talk about this before you do something you'll regret." Something I'll regret. Not something he'd regret. Not an apology. Just anger that I dared to push back. Mom called next. Her voicemail was crying. "Baby, please, I don't understand. We love you. We just wanted what's best for Jennifer's baby. Why are you doing this to us? Don't you care about family?" Jennifer didn't leave a voicemail. She posted on Facebook instead. "Devastated to learn my own sister is suing our parents over money. I guess I never really knew her. Families should support each other, not destroy each other. Praying for her to find peace." The comments flooded in. Friends of the family, relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, strangers who knew Jennifer from her lifestyle blog, everyone expressing sympathy, everyone calling me cold, everyone agreeing that blood was thicker than water. I screenshot the post, added it to my evidence folder. Patricia had been right. It was getting ugly. By day 21, the entire extended family knew. My Aunt Margaret called me a disgrace. My Uncle Paul sent a long email about how disappointed my grandmother would be if she were alive. Cousins I'd helped through college unfriended me on social media. But there were surprises, too. My cousin David called on day 23. "I should have spoken up sooner," he said quietly. "They did the same thing to me 15 years ago. Not the house thing, but the money. I gave them everything I had from my settlement after my accident. $30,000. They promised to invest it for me. I never saw it again." "David, You're not crazy, Rebecca. You're the first person in this family brave enough to say no. Don't back down." He hung up before I could respond. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the eviction notice, about Jennifer measuring my kitchen, about Mom cutting cake on my birthday like she hadn't just asked me to give up my entire life. I got out of bed and found my old journal, the one I'd kept before I'd gotten too busy working overtime to afford their emergencies. The entries were heartbreaking. Page after page of me trying to convince myself I was happy. That family was everything. That sacrifice was love. I gave Dad $5,000 today. He said his business would go under without it. I had to cancel my trip to see Sarah, but that's okay. Family comes first. Mom called crying again. She can't make her mortgage. I'll pick up extra shifts. I don't mind. Jennifer needs help with tuition. I'll take out another loan. She's going to do amazing things. I'm so proud of her. I'd given until there was nothing left, and I'd called it love. I closed the journal, opened my laptop, started typing. By sunrise, I'd written a post. Not angry, not bitter, just honest. On my 35th birthday, my family gave me an eviction notice for my own house, a house I bought with money I earned working 60-hour weeks. They wanted it for my sister, who they believe needs it more than I do because she's pregnant. What they didn't mention is that over the past 10 years, I've given them $430,000, tuition I paid for, business debts I covered, mortgages I rescued. Every time they asked, I said yes, because I thought that's what family meant. I was wrong. This isn't about the money. It's about finally understanding that love doesn't demand everything and give nothing back. It's about recognizing that boundaries aren't selfish, they're survival. So yes, I'm suing them. Not for revenge, for justice. And for every person out there who's ever been the family ATM, who's ever been called selfish for saying no, who's ever been told that real love means erasing yourself for others, this is for you. You are not responsible for other people's choices. You are not a bad person for choosing yourself. You are not alone. I attached the bank statements, the loan documents, the screenshots of their promises to pay me back. Then I posted it. Within an hour, it had 50 shares. By morning, 500. By noon, 15,000. The comments were overwhelming. This is my mother. Thank you for speaking up. I gave my brother everything. He never paid me back either. I thought I was the problem. Your family doesn't deserve you. I'm so sorry. But among the support were the attacks. Family friends calling me vindictive. Distant relatives saying I was airing dirty laundry. Jennifer's followers accusing me of lying for attention. My phone rang. Mom, I answered this time. How could you? She screamed. How could you humiliate us like this? Everyone's talking about us. Jennifer's crying. Your father had to take blood pressure medication. You gave me an eviction notice on my birthday, I said calmly. For my own house. We were trying to help you be less selfish. By taking my home? It was never really yours, Rebecca. We're your parents. Everything you have because we raised you. You owe us. There it was. The truth I'd been avoiding for 35 years. I don't owe you my life, I said. If you don't drop this lawsuit, we'll never speak to you again. Okay, I said. She hung up. I sat there holding my phone, waiting to feel devastated. Waiting for the panic, the guilt, the desperate need to call her back and apologize. But all I felt was tired. On day 27, Jennifer showed up at my office. Security called me first. There's a young woman here claiming to be your sister. She's pretty upset. Do you want us to remove her? No, I said. I'll come down. She was pacing in the lobby, mascara running down her face, hands shaking. Please, she said when she saw me. Please drop the lawsuit. Mom and Dad are falling apart. They might lose their house. Is that what you want? To destroy our family? I didn't destroy anything, I said quietly. I just stopped pretending it wasn't already broken. This is about the eviction notice, isn't it? We were just trying to help. You don't understand how hard it is being pregnant and poor. You're not pregnant, Jennifer. She froze. I know you're not, I continued, because I called your doctor's office. HIPAA doesn't apply when you've been committing fraud. Her face went white. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. Your Instagram posts show you drinking wine 2 weeks ago. Your Facebook check-ins have you at hot yoga. And your medical records, which your doctor was very willing to share once I mentioned fraud, show you haven't been to an OB/GYN in 3 years. Jennifer's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then her expression hardened. You know what? I never liked you anyway. You were always Mom's least favorite, the one who tried too hard, the one who gave and gave because you were desperate for anyone to love you. And guess what? We still don't. You were just useful. She turned and walked out. I stood there in my office lobby, watching her go, and finally understood what freedom felt like. I spent that night Googling things I'd never thought I'd need to know. Narcissistic family dynamics, financial abuse by parents, golden child and scapegoat roles. Every article I read felt like someone had been watching my life through a window and taking notes. The scapegoat is often the most successful child, the one who gives endlessly hoping to earn love that was never actually available. They're blamed for family problems, expected to solve everyone's crises, and punished when they finally set boundaries. I'd been the family scapegoat for 35 years and hadn't even known there was a name for it. My best friend Sarah came over the next morning with coffee and bagels. She found me still at my laptop, surrounded by printed articles and highlighted legal documents. "You look like you haven't slept," she said, setting down the coffee. "I haven't." I showed her the screen. "Did you know there's an entire psychological framework for what my family's been doing? It's not just me being sensitive. It's actual abuse." Sarah had been telling me this for years, but I'd never listened. I'd always defended them, made excuses, convinced myself that every family had problems and I was lucky they loved me enough to need me. "Rebecca," she said gently, sitting beside me, "I'm glad you're finally seeing it, but what are you going to do?" I pulled up the folder Patricia had helped me create. "I'm going to take back every dollar they stole, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth." "That's going to hurt." "Good. They spent 10 years hurting me. They called it love. I'm calling it what it actually is: exploitation." Sarah squeezed my hand. "I'm here. Whatever you need. Character witness, emotional support, someone to remind you that you're not crazy. I'm here." I hadn't cried since the birthday party, but sitting there with someone who actually cared about me, not what I could give them, I finally broke down. "I thought they loved me," I sobbed. "I really thought if I just gave enough, sacrificed enough, they'd finally see me as valuable." "You are valuable," Sarah said fiercely, "but not because of what you give, because of who you are, and it's time you started believing that." Over the next week, I built my case with Patricia like we were constructing a fortress. Every document cataloged, every email archived, every text message that showed their manipulation, their demands, their complete lack of remorse. The financial evidence alone was staggering. I'd paid Jennifer's entire college tuition, $80,000 in student loans that were still in my name, that I was still paying off monthly. I'd wired my father $150,000 when his construction business collapsed, money he'd promised was a loan but never returned. I'd taken over my mother's mortgage payments for 3 years, $200,000 that kept her in a house she couldn't afford while she lectured me about fiscal responsibility. But Patricia wanted more than just financial records. "We need to prove the psychological component," she explained. "The manipulation, the gaslighting, the way they made you believe you were obligated to fund their lives." So I went through years of messages. Mom's texts saying, "A good daughter would help without being asked." Dad's emails about how disappointed he was when I'd hesitated to send money. Jennifer's Instagram posts thanking me for being the best sister ever, while privately demanding I cover her rent. There was a pattern. They'd bomb me when they needed something, calls telling me how special I was, how much they appreciated me, how I was the only one they could count on. Then the request would come. Then, if I showed any hesitation, the punishment, silent treatment, guilt trips, accusations that I was selfish and didn't care about family. I'd fallen for it every single time. "This is textbook coercive control," Patricia said, reading through the messages. "You know that, right? This isn't normal family dynamics. This is systematic exploitation." "I enabled it," I said quietly. "No, you survived it. There's a difference." The demand letter had given them 30 days to respond. On day 28, their lawyer called Patricia. She put the call on speaker so I could hear. "My clients are willing to negotiate," their attorney said. His name was something pretentious, Bradford Montgomery III, and he sounded exactly like someone who'd defend people trying to steal their daughter's house. They acknowledged there may have been some misunderstandings about the financial arrangements. "Misunderstandings?" Patricia repeated flatly. Your clients accepted $430,000 from my client over 10 years, promised repeatedly to repay her, and then attempted to evict her from her own home. That's not a misunderstanding. That's fraud. That's a bit dramatic. Is it? Because we have documented evidence of every transaction, every promise, every manipulation tactic they used. We have text messages where they explicitly called these transactions loans. We have emails where they promised repayment schedules. And we have an eviction notice they issued for a property they don't own. So tell me, Bradford, what exactly are we misunderstanding? There was a long silence. What does your client want? Patricia looked at me. We'd discussed this. Full repayment of all loans with interest calculated at the standard legal rate. That comes to $380,000. A formal public apology acknowledging the financial abuse and defamation, and a legally binding agreement that they will never contact my client again unless she initiates contact first. That's outrageous. Then we'll see you in court. Discovery should be interesting. I'm particularly looking forward to deposing your clients about their asset holdings versus their repeated claims of poverty. Something tells me the numbers won't match up. Bradford hung up. Patricia grinned at me. Well, that was fun. They're not going to pay, are they? Not voluntarily. But that's okay. We'll file the lawsuit tomorrow. And Rebecca? She leaned forward. When this goes to court, everyone will know what they did. Every family member who's been giving you grief. Every friend who believed their lies. The truth will come out and it will be public record. Are you ready for that? I thought about the eviction notice, about Jennifer measuring my kitchen, about my mother saying, "It was never really yours." Yes, I said. I'm ready. The lawsuit was filed on day 31. Patricia had crafted it beautifully. Every charge backed by ironclad evidence. Every claim of abuse supported by documented patterns. We sued for the full amount plus interest, and we included defamation charges for Jennifer's social media campaign against me. The local news picked up the story within hours. Woman sues parents and sister for $380,000 in financial exploitation case. My phone exploded. Notifications from people I hadn't spoken to in years, all wanting to know if it was true, if I was really doing this, if I understood what this meant for the family. I turned my phone off and went to therapy. Dr. Ellen Roberts had been my therapist for 3 years, helping me through work stress and relationship anxiety. I'd never told her the truth about my family. I'd been too ashamed, too convinced that if I was just better, they'd treat me better. Now, I told her everything. I spent 35 years trying to earn love that was never available, I said, sitting in her office with tissues clutched in my hands. I thought if I just sacrificed enough, gave enough, they'd finally see me as worthy. But they never did, and they never will. Do you know why? Dr. Roberts asked gently. Because I'm not actually their daughter. I'm their resource. Exactly, and resources don't have feelings, boundaries, or needs of their own. That's what made you so valuable to them. You kept giving without demanding reciprocity. I was so stupid. You weren't stupid. You were conditioned. Children learn love from their parents, and your parents taught you that love meant self-erasure. It's taken you 35 years to unlearn that lie. That's not stupidity. That's survival. We sat in silence for a moment. What happens now? I asked. Now you grieve. You grieve the family you thought you had, the love you thought you were building toward, the version of yourself who believed sacrifice would be rewarded. And then you start building a life based on what you actually want, not what other people demand. I don't know what I want. Then that's where we start. The preliminary hearing was set for 3 months out. In the meantime, my family launched a full-scale campaign to destroy my reputation. My mother gave an interview to a local blogger crying about how I'd abandoned them in their time of need, how she'd raised an ungrateful daughter, how all she'd ever wanted was for her girls to be close. She didn't mention the eviction notice. She didn't mention the $430,000. She just cried and looked like a victim. My father went to our church and told everyone I'd had a mental breakdown, that I needed prayers and intervention, that the devil had gotten hold of me and turned me against my own blood. People who'd known me since childhood started looking at me with pity and suspicion. Jennifer doubled down on social media. She posted photos of her baby bump, which looked suspiciously like a pillow under her shirt, and wrote long captions about how she was trying to stay positive despite her sister's betrayal. Her followers rallied around her, sending me hate messages and death threats. But something unexpected happened too. My cousin David posted his own story about how our grandparents had done the same thing to our father, and our father had learned to do it to his own children, about how he'd given them $30,000 and never seen it again, about how he'd been called selfish when he'd finally said no. Then my Aunt Margaret called, not to yell at me, to apologize. I believed them, she said, her voice shaking. I believed you were being cruel. But then David told me what happened to him, and I started remembering things. Times when your mother asked me for money and never paid it back. Times when your father borrowed from everyone and blamed us when we asked for repayment. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault, I said. Yes, it is. I was an adult. I saw what they were doing to you, and I said nothing. I let them make you the family ATM, and I benefited from it because it meant they left the rest of us alone. I'm sorry. More people started reaching out. Family friends who'd always wondered why I looked so tired. Coworkers who'd noticed I never took vacations. Neighbors who'd seen Jennifer measuring my house and thought it was strange. The truth was spreading, and my family couldn't contain it. The court date arrived on a cold Tuesday in November. Patricia had prepared me for everything: what to expect, how to behave, what questions the opposing counsel might ask. But nothing prepared me for seeing them walk into the courtroom. My mother looked smaller somehow, her face tight with fury. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. Jennifer wore a maternity dress and carried a folder full of what I assumed were fake medical records. Bradford Montgomery III stood up and immediately requested the case be dismissed. Your Honor, this is a family matter that should be resolved privately, not in a court of law. My clients are willing to enter mediation. Your clients had 30 days to respond to the demand letter, Patricia interrupted. They chose to attack my client's character instead. We're not interested in mediation. We want justice. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named Judge Carolyn Reeves, looked over the evidence Patricia had submitted. Counselor Montgomery, your clients issued an eviction notice for a property they don't own. Is that correct? Your Honor, that was a misunderstanding. Yes or no? Bradford hesitated. Yes. And they accepted a total of $430,000 from the plaintiff over a 10-year period? Those were gifts, Your Honor, family support. The plaintiff has emails and text messages where your clients explicitly referred to these transactions as loans and promised repayment, multiple times. That's not a gift, that's a debt. Judge Reeves looked at my family with the kind of expression that made people squirm. I'm scheduling a full hearing for 3 weeks from now. In the meantime, I'm granting a temporary restraining order. The defendants are not to contact the plaintiff directly or indirectly, and they are not to make any further public statements about her. Is that clear? My mother stood up. Your Honor, she's my daughter. Sit down, Mrs. Martinez. You've lost the privilege of claiming that relationship. Court adjourned. Patricia squeezed my hand as we walked out. That went better than I expected. I didn't feel victorious, I just felt empty. That night, I went home to my house, the one they'd tried to take, and sat in the dark. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're going to regret this. We'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I forwarded it to Patricia, added it to the evidence folder. Then I opened my laptop and started typing. People keep asking me if I regret suing my family. Here's my answer. No, I regret not doing it sooner. I spent 35 years believing that love meant sacrifice. That family meant saying yes, even when you wanted to say no. That boundaries were selfish and demands were just how people showed they needed you. I was wrong. Real love doesn't demand that you erase yourself. Real family doesn't treat you like an ATM. Real relationships don't require you to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm. My family gave me an eviction notice for my own house on my birthday. They called it love. I call it what it actually is: abuse. Financial abuse, emotional abuse, systematic exploitation disguised as family loyalty. So no, I don't regret the lawsuit. I regret the years I spent thinking I deserved to be treated this way. I regret believing that my worth was measured by what I could give. I regret every time I said yes when I meant no. But I don't regret choosing myself, not anymore. I posted it. Then I closed my laptop and sat in my living room, in my house, in the space I'd worked so hard to create. For the first time in my life, I wasn't waiting for permission to exist. The 3 weeks before the final hearing felt like living in a pressure cooker. Every day brought new developments, new attacks, new revelations. My father's construction company records surfaced. Turns out he hadn't been on the verge of bankruptcy when I'd given him $150,000. He'd been hiding assets to avoid paying contractors. The money I'd sent him had gone to a vacation home in Florida. My mother's mortgage situation was equally fraudulent. She'd refinanced her house twice, taking out equity each time, and used my payments to fund Jennifer's lifestyle while claiming poverty. And Jennifer? Jennifer had never been pregnant at all. Not even close. The whole thing had been a scheme to guilt me into giving up my house. Patricia compiled everything into a brief that read like a crime novel. Bradford tried to get it dismissed, claiming emotional distress and family privacy, but Judge Reeves wasn't having it. "Your clients committed fraud," she said during a pre-hearing conference. "Multiple counts. The only question now is how much they'll pay." They came back with a settlement offer, $100,000 and a promise to stay away from me. "Absolutely not," I told Patricia. "They took $430,000. They pay back $380,000, or we go to trial." "They can't afford that. They'll have to sell assets." "Good. Let them feel what it's like to lose something they value." Patricia smiled. "I love when clients find their backbone." The final hearing was on a Friday. The courtroom was packed. Family members, reporters, curious onlookers who'd followed the story online. My family sat on one side with Bradford. I sat on the other with Patricia. Judge Reeves entered, and everyone stood. "We're here to resolve the matter of Martinez versus Martinez. I've reviewed all evidence, all testimony, all financial records, and I'm ready to rule." My heart hammered in my chest. The defendants engaged in a systematic pattern of financial exploitation spanning 10 years. They accepted money under false pretenses, promised repayment they never intended to make, and when the plaintiff finally set boundaries, they attempted to seize her property through fraudulent means. Bradford tried to interrupt. Judge Reeves silenced him with a look. The defendants are ordered to pay the plaintiff $380,000, the total amount borrowed plus interest. Payment is to be made in full within 90 days, or assets will be seized to satisfy the judgment. Additionally, the defendants are ordered to issue a public apology acknowledging their actions and retracting all defamatory statements made about the plaintiff. My mother started crying. My father's face turned red. Jennifer looked like she might throw up. Furthermore, the restraining order is made permanent. The defendants are not to contact the plaintiff in any way unless she initiates contact. Violation of this order will result in contempt charges. Judge Reeves looked directly at my family. "You exploited your daughter's love and generosity for a decade. You treated her like a bank account instead of a human being. And when she finally said no, you tried to destroy her. This court finds your behavior unconscionable. You should be ashamed." She banged her gavel. "Case closed." The courtroom erupted. Reporters rushed toward me. Family members started arguing. Patricia pulled me toward a side exit before the chaos could swallow me. "You did it," she said, grinning. "You actually did it." I couldn't speak. I just nodded. Outside the courthouse, my phone started buzzing. Text messages from people I'd thought I'd lost. From David: "You're a hero. Thank you for being brave enough to break the cycle." From Aunt Margaret: "I'm proud of you. Your grandmother would be proud too." From Sarah: "I'm throwing you a party. You can't say no. Justice deserves cake." But the message that made me cry came from someone I didn't recognize. "I'm a stranger who followed your story. I've been my family's ATM for 15 years. I thought I was alone. Thank you for showing me I'm not. Tomorrow, I'm calling a lawyer. You saved my life." I stood there on the courthouse steps, reading messages from people I'd never meet, people who'd been living the same nightmare, people who'd finally found the courage to say no. My family had tried to break me. Instead, they'd freed me. And in trying to take everything, they'd given me something they never had, a clear conscience. 2 months later, I got a check. $380,000. My parents had been forced to sell their house, the one I'd been paying the mortgage on. Jennifer had to liquidate her savings. My father had to sell his vacation home. They'd lost their assets, their reputation, and their scapegoat. I deposited the check and paid off every loan I'd taken out for them. The student loans for Jennifer's college, the business loan I'd guaranteed for Dad, every dollar I'd borrowed to keep them afloat. For the first time in 10 years, I was debt-free. I bought myself a gift, a plane ticket to Italy, 2 weeks in Tuscany, staying in small villages, drinking wine, eating pasta, doing absolutely nothing for anyone but myself. Sarah came with me. We celebrated my 36th birthday in Florence, eating tiramisu and toasting to freedom. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Light," I said. "I feel light." When I got home, I found a letter in my mailbox, no return address. Inside was a handwritten note. "You were always the problem. We're better off without you. Mom." I read it twice. Then I did something I'd never been able to do before. I laughed, because she was right about one thing. They were better off without me. Without my money, my sacrifice, my endless willingness to set myself on fire to keep them warm. And I was better off without them too. I framed the eviction notice they'd given me on my 35th birthday, hung it in my office as a reminder, not of what I'd lost, but of what I'd gained, the ability to recognize abuse, the strength to say no, the clarity to understand that walking away from toxicity isn't cruelty, it's survival. I started a blog called The Scapegoat Diaries, wrote about my experience, shared resources for people escaping financial abuse, connected with others who'd lived through similar situations. The response was overwhelming. Thousands of people reached out, people who'd given everything to families that gave nothing back, people who'd been told their boundaries were selfish, people who'd believed love meant self-erasure. I became a consultant for people navigating family estrangement, helped them document abuse, find lawyers, build cases, watched them reclaim their lives one boundary at a time. My family never contacted me again. I heard through the grapevine that my parents divorced, that Jennifer moved to another state, that they blamed each other for losing their scapegoat. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sadness, just peace. On my 37th birthday, I threw a party. Not because it was expected, because I wanted to. Sarah was there. David was there. Aunt Margaret was there. The people from my support group were there. Everyone who'd shown up when I needed them, who'd chosen to be in my life rather than assigned by blood. We ate cake. We laughed. Nobody asked me for money or demanded I prove my love through sacrifice. And when they asked what I wanted as a gift, I told them the truth. Nothing. I already have everything I need. Someone asked if I ever regretted the lawsuit, if I missed my family, if I wished things had turned out differently. I smiled and told them the same thing I tell everyone who asks. On my 35th birthday, they gave me an eviction notice. Today, on my 37th birthday, I'm sitting in my house, surrounded by people who actually love me. Justice doesn't always come fast, but when it does, it's worth the wait. I raised my glass to choosing yourself, to setting boundaries, to understanding that walking away from toxicity isn't giving up, it's waking up. And to everyone still trapped in families that treat them like ATMs, you are not selfish. You are not cruel. You are not alone. There is life after estrangement. And it's beautiful. Everyone cheered. And in that moment, surrounded by chosen family instead of obligatory blood, I finally understood what love actually meant. It wasn't sacrifice. It wasn't endless giving. It wasn't erasing yourself to make room for other people's needs. It was showing up as yourself, flaws and boundaries and all, and being accepted anyway. My family gave me an eviction notice on my birthday. They thought they were taking my home. Instead, they gave me freedom. And that's the best gift I've ever received.